Not bad, to be fair.
The mighty have upped their pace. The powerhouses have been rattled. Team white. Vanish ball. Powerhouses are rejoining the match.
What's going on, Babylonians? It's me, Songs of Rays, and I'm back with some more The Finals guides. In today's video, we'll be kickstarting a brand new series called How to Fix, looking at the worst weapons The Finals currently has in its game, and we'll look at how to make them better. In today's episode, we're focusing on the throwing knives for the light class, looking at what they can do, how well they can do it, and most importantly, what holds them back. After all that, I'll look to suggest some changes to help make the weapon better, including one more radical of a change that may change its behaviour or maybe even its animation. But now that I've established what I'm trying to do, let's kick it all off and let's have a look at the stats behind the knives. Damage-wise, the default fire of the throwing knives offers a base of 60 per knife, resulting in 120 per click. The knives hold a respectable headshot multiplier of 1.5, meaning each knife can do up to 90 points to the head, taking down a light class with one well-placed click of the mouse or even a pull of the trigger. Unfortunately though, the knives do suffer from two bad points that really do hold them back: a low rate of fire and them being projectiles with travel. With a rate of fire clocking in at roughly 148 RPM, the knives aren't the easiest thing to be able to spam down a corridor or at your enemy's heads, forcing the user to take their time and maximize accuracy. Now sure, you could fill a choke point with a barrage of knives, but in the time of you trying this, you'll likely have been melted down by any number of other weapons that the other classes could have brought in. With the knives being classed as projectiles as opposed to hit scan weapons, you're instantly at a disadvantage to the other ranged options the light has access to, along with the vast majority of weaponry the other two classes can bring in. Worrying about travel time and leading your target with each shot are two things other top tier weapons like the XP54 and the V9S never have to worry about. This also works into the downfall of the throwing knives, meaning that they have a limited range of which they can be practically used, as after a certain distance, knives will continue to dip due to gravity and can no longer hit or do damage to players. Now fortunately, the knives do boast an alternative fire, a wind-up mechanic leading to a strong knife throw that deals more damage, has better range and less arc. Being able to hit a light class in the head with one shot with relative silence is amazing to witness and such a rush to land. Unfortunately, the pitiful rate of fire of 40 RPM of this ability really does hinder the usefulness when inside of combat. It's a great tool to start a fight, but a poor tool after that first shot. Now while I wish that was the end of it, there is one last thing the knives can really do to dig their own grave. Throw knives are classed as projectiles, and large ones at that, leaving them embedded in a target for a short amount of time. Unfortunately, these embedded knives do work as mini knife-proof shields, and they block any subsequent hits that then land in the same area from dealing any damage. Yes, that's right, you're dealing damage to them to make the target smaller to hit for follow-up shots. This becomes increasingly frustrating when aiming for headshots, you know, the main area you should be aiming for with this weapon, so please Embark, fix this if nothing else. But enough about the negatives, let's have a look at some of the stats so we can suggest some fixes. So using our primary fire, the knives can reach out to a maximum of around about 35 meters. This will take roughly 1.5 seconds to land that hit after you've thrown the knife, working out to be roughly 22.8 meters per second velocity, so it's not advisable inside of combat to throw that far. It's almost always better to close that gap before engaging, and especially for follow-up shots to secure that kill. It's always advised to be able to never jump when using the throwing knives when attacking, as the accuracy penalty for this weapon especially is awful, resulting in knives going left and right of your crosshair, to the point that it may even be better to not even aim at your target when throwing to try and secure a hit. Now fortunately, the alt fire doesn't share a lot of these properties, having better range, better velocity, and little to no jumping inaccuracy, even if the projectile trail does suggest otherwise, but aiming at roughly the same 35 meter distance, the alt fire took half a second to land that hit, resulting in a rough velocity of about 68-69 meters per second. Now while I couldn't ascertain its max range in the testing area, the alt fire did fare much better, boasting better tracking properties to the left click and much less dip when fired over range. If you're engaging or poking from about 25 to 30 meters away, it may be preferable to learn the alt fire and how to maximize its potential. One great bit to take away from the range properties of both fire modes is that I couldn't calculate a drop off in damage, suggesting no matter how or where you hit them, the throwing knives will be consistent in the damage that they deal. Whether you're 2 meters or 25 meters away, you'll still get a 3, 5 or 6 shot to kill when it comes to body shots, and a 2, 3 or 4 headshot to kill when you're looking at the light, medium and heavy classes respectively. Even if the blades look like they have no more distance in them and they just go to drop to the floor, they still deal the same amount of damage as if you were close up. Now TTK wise, the knives clock in below average for the light class on both body shot as well as headshot time to kills, taking out the Assassin's Dagger for affecting the figures with its face stab 6.5 second time to kill. The throwing knives come in at over 0.5 seconds slower than the average when it comes to killing heavies, which is worse than the sword. Headshot wise, it's not much better, coming in at over 0.3 seconds slower than the average, which once you factor in the ease of the other weapons in the light's arsenal, it's not a pretty sight. Personally, I do believe a damage change is needed for the throwing knives, at least to be able to help it out in this kind of regard. So we've heard what's wrong with the weapon, so what can we do to assist it and make it more viable in the arena? Fortunately, I have 3 proposed changes I'd love to see implemented, and one that changes the weapon's firing mode, changing its current playstyle into something a bit more mobile and a bit more close up. So let's start with the 3 regular type changes. First of which, and one I'd like to see happen regardless of any other changes happening, the ult fire needs to be sped up animation wise. Having a high damage knife on such a long wind-up animation, one that's slower than the SR84's rechamber speed, is absolutely ludicrous in my opinion, and it leads to players never really wanting to use this. If this can be sped up from something as simple as 40 RPM to 50 RPM to match that of the SR84's rechamber, it will be a much more attractive option to use, without breaking the TTK values when landing those shots. As much as I'd like to suggest a better velocity, I feel the speed change in the casting would be the ideal place to start, and then we can look to move from there. Secondly, the jumping inaccuracy has to go. The knives already have it rough enough, so being able to punish them for jumping and being a hard target to hit when making the weapon essentially useless is just a step too far. That being said, I do appreciate why the inaccuracy exists for other weapons, so by removing this for just the knives, this will help the weapon to carve itself a niche and a reason to be able to use in the arena. Like being a quiet and being a mobile agent in the arena, the knives will have you covered better than any other weapon in the class. Lastly, let's talk about damage. Now, messing with the damage numbers is a delicate practice. Too much of an increase can cause the weapon to go from trash to top tier, whereas too little of a change will do absolutely nothing to help. That's right, looking at you 2 points for the LH1. After looking at the figures and messing with some combinations, I feel a change from 60 base damage to 70 is the perfect ground for the knives to be able to sit on. Doing this will not affect the TTK against other light class users for both body or headshots, but it will help the knives be brought more in line with some other weapons when dealing with mediums and heavies, the most prominent classes that are in the game. This simple addition of 10 more points of damage drops the body shots needed from each from 5 and 6 to 4 and 5, bringing the weapon a little bit more in line with the rest of the arsenal, but not making it overpowered. The joy of doing this though means that it's just enough to be able to affect body shots while not changing the headshots needed for the classes, leaving them at 2, 3 and 4 respectively. Personally, I like to think this is the best solution, but then again all 3 would be welcome. So this then leaves my radical change, the one that I don't expect to see, but I want to be able to offer another perspective, a different way of being able to play the knives. Now while I do enjoy the knives for what they currently offer, both fire modes feel like variations of each other, both firing knives in a standard way, with one offering a little bit more damage but slower, and the other being faster but less damage. What I'd like to propose is that the primary fire is changed into a spray of 3 knives horizontally, akin to that of Genji from Overwatch. Doing this would give the ult fire a reason to exist, as the throw from range when the primary fire would help in the close quarters engagements. Now by leaving the damage at 60 per knife, a full spray landing could one-shot a light and 2-tap heavies and mediums if all of the blades connected. To counter this being overpowered, I'd suggest the fire rate to be dropped closer to that of 75 or 80 RPM. This leaves it a little bit slower than the SH19 at 100 RPM, who is able to one-shot the light class and isn't technically considered overpowered, and also the spray of the blades to only land all 3 on a light body from within something close to 4 to 5 meters. With this dispersion and this rate of fire, I feel this would help to keep the change in check, while also offering a new way of being able to play the knives that's both fun and rewarding. But these are just my thoughts, as is how I would change the throwing knives, so this is where I want to hear from you. How do you feel about the throwing knives currently? What changes would you like to be able to implement, and what weapon would you like to see next in this series? Let me know all of that down below. Massive thank you for making your way to the end of the video. Massive thank you to the Babylonian family, as always, for their continued support. From me and the guys at Babylon, we wish you a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. So keep yourselves safe, keep yourselves well, and I'll see you all in the next video.